The New England Farmer or Georgical Dictionary, containing a compendious account of the ways and methods in which the important art of husbandry in all its various branches is or may be practiced to the greatest advantage in this country, by Samuel Dean, 1797. To the farmers of New England, this edition of the Georgical Dictionary, revised, corrected, and enlarged, is inscribed with much respect by their most obedient and very humble servant, the editor, Worcester, March, 1797. Contents: A for agriculture, air, anticore, ants, apples, apple tree, arable land, artichoke, cynara, artichoke, heliant, ash, ashes, asparagus, aspen, autumn, axe. B, barley, barn, barnyard, bean, beer, bees, beet, bidens, birdgrass, blight, blood, bog, browse, buckwheat, bull, burn baking, burnet, burnt clay, burnt grain, bushes. C, cabbage, calf, canker, cankerworm, carriage. Carrot, cart, caterpillar, cattle, change of crops, change of seeds, charcoal, charlock, cheese, chickweed, churn, churning, cider, ciderkin, scythes, clay, clay soil, clearing land, climate, clog, clover, coal seed, compost, copse, corn, coulter, cow, cow house, cradle, cream, crop, cucumbers, cultivator, current, custom, cuttings, scion. D, dairy, dairy room, darnel, denshiring, dibble, ditch, ditching. Divisions: door dung, drain, dray, dressing, drill, drought, dung, dunghills, dung meres, Dutch hoe, dike. E, earth, eddish, effluvium, elder, elf shoot, elm, employment, enclosure, use, excrement, experience, experiments. F, faggot, fall, fallowing, false quarter, fan, farcy, farm, farmer, fen, fence, fermentation, fern, fescue, field, fish, flail, Flanders grass, flax, flax break, flooding, flour, Flour, and flour, Flower, fly, foal, fodder, foddering, fog, folding, food of plants, forest, foundering, freezing, fruit trees, furrow, furrowing. G, garden, gardening, garget, gigs, glanders, goats, goose, grafting, grain, granary, grass, gravel, grease, green dressing, greens, green scouring, gripes, ground, grove, grub. H. Harrow, harrowing, harvest. Hatchel, hay, hay hook, haymaking, hemp, henting furrows, herds grass. Hidebound, hoe, hoeing. Hogsty, hop. Horn distemper, horse. Horse hoe, hurdle. Hurts in the withers, husbandry. Improvement, enarching, enclosure, increase, Indian corn, inoculating, insect, interval. Okay. Kale, calendar, Cali, Kalmia, kid, killing, kiln, K-I-L-N, kiln, K-I-L-N-E, kitchen garden. L. Lambs, lampus, land, larch, layers, leyland, leaves, lees, lice, lime, limestone, loam, locust tree, lucerne, lupins, lie. M. Melanders, malt, malt dust, manure, maple, mare, marking of cattle, marl, marsh, mattock, meadow. Measles, melon, meslin, metheglin, mice, mildew, milk, millet, moss, mold, moldboard, mow, mowing, mowing ground, muck, mud, mulberry, mulch. N. Knave, navel gall, nectarine, new husbandry, nursery, nut tree, nympha. O. Oak, oats, olive, onions, orchard, orweed, osier, overflowing of the gall, outhouses, ox, oyster. P. Pale, pan, panics, panic, parsnip, pasture, pasture of plants, peach trees, pear trees, peas, peat, pen, perkin or purr, perry, perspiration of plants, plant, plaster of Paris, plat, plow, plowing, plum trees, pole evil, pond, poplar, potato, poultry, pronghoe, provender, pulse. Q. Quaking meadow, quick, quicks, quicksilver, quince tree, quincunx order, quitch grass. R. Rabbit, rack, radical, radish, rags. Rails, rain, rats, redworm, reed, ridgeling, rippling cart, rod, roller, rolling, rude, roots, rot, rotation of crops, rowel, runnet, rush, rust, rye, ryegrass. S. Salt, salting, sand, sandy soil, sap, scratches, seawater, seeds, seeding, seedling, semination, shade, shed, sheep, shells, shrub, siliquose plants, seethe, sled, slips, slough, sluice, smut, sneed or snathe, snow, soil, soiling, soot, sow, sowing, spade, spaven, spaying, spelt, spiky roller, springs, springs, spring grain, springe, spur in rye, squash, stable, stack, staggers, stale, stallion, stercorary, stock, stones, stone wall, stooking, stover, strain, strangles, straw, strawberries, string halt, stubble, stump, sty, sucker, summer, sunflower, surfeit, swamp, sward, swarm, swarth, swath rake, swine, sycamore. T. Tail sickness, team, teasel, tether, thatch, thill horse, thistle, thrashing, tyke, tillage, tiller, tilth, timber, timothy grass, tobacco, top dressing, transplanting, tree, trefoil, trench, trench plow, trowel, tumor, turf, turkey, turnip, turnip cabbage, V, valley, van or fan, udder, veering, vegetable, vegetation, ventilator, verjuice, vermin, vetch, vine, vinegar, vineyard, vives, ulcer, urine, Ustalago. W. Wagon, wall, wane, warbles, water, water furrowing, watering, weather, wedge, weeding, weeds, weevil, wheat, wheel, wheezing, whelp, way, white scour, white weed, willow, wind, gall, wine, winnowing, winter, winter grain, withe, woad, wolf, wood, woodland, woody, wool, worms, wound. Y. Yard a measure, yard an enclosure, year, yellowweed, yellows, yeoman, yest, yew tree, yoke. Z. Zapatino, zia, zebra, zephyr, zest. Introduction. It is much to be regretted that the most complicated of all the arts, in which the brightest genius may find sufficient room to exert and display itself, should be slighted and neglected by a people not generally wanting in ambition. And it is equally strange and unaccountable that the most useful and necessary of all employments should have been considered, even by the enlightened people of New England, as below the attention of any persons, excepting those who are in the lowest walks of life, or that persons of a liberal or polite education should think it intolerably degrading to them to attend to practical agriculture for their support. Perhaps one occasion of the low esteem in which husbandry has been held in this country may have been the poor success which has most commonly attended the labors of those who have embraced the profession. Not only have most of them failed of rapidly increasing their estates by it, but too many have had the mortification of making but an indifferent figure in life, even when they have used the strictest economy and worn out their constitutions by hard and incessant labor. The misfortune has been that a great proportion of their toil has been lost by its misapplication. To prevent this evil in future is a leading design of the present publication. And since many among us begin to be convinced of the urgent necessity of having the attention of the public turned to agriculture, it is hoped that the following attempt to promote the knowledge of its mysteries and spirited attention. Sorry, back to the letters. T, continued, I guess we missed it. Tillage, tiller, tilth, timber, Timothy. No, we did that already. It is much to be. All right. Attention to the operations. Okay, so let me start here. Public turn to agriculture. It is hoped that the following attempt to promote the knowledge of its mysteries and a spirited attention to the operations of it will meet with the greater approbation and success. And as a very respectable society in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts have undertaken to propagate the knowledge of husbandry, the day may be at hand when the employment of the farmer shall no more be treated with contempt, when the rich, the polite, and the ambitious shall glory in paying a close attention to their farms, when respectable persons shall confess it is one of the noblest employments to assist nature in her bountiful productions, when it shall be our ambition to follow the example of the first man in the nation who does not think an attention to husbandry degrading, and when instead of being ashamed of their employment, our laborious farmers shall, as a great writer says, toss about their dung with an air of majesty. Amidst the laudable efforts that are now making to promote so excellent a design as the revival of agriculture, the writer of the following sheets is humbly attempting to throw in his mite. He has been more prompted to engage in so arduous an undertaking by an opinion he has long entertained of the need of a work of this kind, adapted to the state and circumstances of this country, than by any idea of his being thoroughly qualified to undertake it. European books on agriculture are sufficiently plenty in the world, some of which are extremely well written, and this country is not wholly unfurnished with them. But they are not perfectly adapted to a region so differently circumstanced. Though the productions of English writers may be perused by the judicious to great advantage, it would be unadvisable and perhaps ruinous for our farmers to adopt the methods of culture in gross which they recommend to their countrymen. Local circumstances so widely differ in the two countries that in many cases the right management in the one must needs be wrong in the other. Britain being generally liable to too much wetness, the English methods of culture must, in many respects, be different from those of a region that is mostly annoyed, as ours is, with the opposite extremity of drought. Difference of heat and cold must require a correspondent variation in the suitable crops and management. Difference of seasons and climates vary the fit times for the set times for sowing the same kinds of seed, and the manures that prove to be most profitable in one country cannot always be rationally expected to prove so in another, although they were equally obtainable. And though Americans speak the English language, yet the diction peculiar to different farmers on the east and west of the Atlantic, and the manner of their communicating and their ideas on husbandry are so little alike, as to render it highly expedient that we should be introduced in it by our own countrymen rather than by strangers, if any among us can be found capable of doing it in a tolerable degree. The writer confesses he has never had sufficient leisure to attend very closely to the study of agriculture, but having always had a high relish for natural philosophy, and particularly for this most profitable and important branch of it, he has paid all possible attention to it for a number of years, employed many of his vacant hours in perusing what has been published by the best writers, and in making useful experiments in husbandry. He flatters himself, therefore, that he shall not have the unhappiness of grossly misleading any of the most ignorant of his readers. Many things are written from his own experience and from that of others in this country, on whose veracity in their communications he can rely. Things which are not certainly known are mentioned only as opinion or conjecture. Extracts are made from some of the best authors and marked as such. He has not wilfully asserted anything which he does not know to be fact, and though he has adopted the ideas of others, he has not passed anything on the public as his own, which has been published by others, unless it be through inattention or mistake. Whether the reasonings be just, every intelligent reader must judge and determine, and to the candor of such the whole is submitted. Long and particular accounts of experiments, such as abound in many European publications, are generally omitted, lest they should take up too much room in a book that is meant to be comprehensive and cheap to the purchaser, at the same time that it is designed to contain a whole system of husbandry. Neither would the intention of comprehending much in a little room permit the pages to be filled with lengthy bills of the cost of culture, and computations of profit, which many writers have too much run into, and in which any writer in this country, where the price of labor is variable, would be in danger of deceiving both himself and his readers. Our farmers have a sufficient knowledge of arithmetic to do these things for themselves, and it would not be amiss for them to amuse themselves in this way in some of their moments of leisure. That the writer has been excited to treat on the present subject by a tender concern for the welfare of his country more than by any selfish and sinister view, those who are best acquainted with him are sufficiently convinced. At the same time, he will not pretend to deny his feeling of an ambition to be one of the first of his nation, who has thus endeavored to lighten the labors and promote the happiness of his countrymen. Yet he most sincerely wishes that other writers on the subject may soon carry the system near to perfection, as they undoubtedly will. But the disadvantages he is under by being so early and having an unbeaten way to explore will doubtless apologize for him with all who are candid and considerate, and partly atone for his errors and imperfections, from which it would be strange if he were wholly free. Though agriculture, strictly considered, has nothing to do with the breeding and management of tame animals. Yet it is so closely connected with those employments, in practice, that the farmer cannot be complete without a considerable knowledge thereof. It is by the assistance of laboring beasts, such as horses and oxen, that he must carry on his tillage, and send the produce of his lands to market. By the help of milch kine, his grass, hay, and other fodder are to be converted into butter and cheese. Bullocks, poultry, and swine must be fed and fattened with the produce of his farm, and he and his family may be fed with their flesh, and the markets supplied with meat. And the sheep must assist him in the transmutation of the fruits of his ground into materials for clothing and food. Therefore, the rearing, tending, and home management of all these sorts of animals are attended to in the following work, including the methods of preventing and curing the most common distempers to which, in this climate, they are liable. Noxious animals, such as beasts of prey, ravenous birds, and devouring insects, have too much connection with agriculture, as the farmer knows by his own sorrowful experience. He ought therefore to be instructed in the most effectual methods of defending his property against them. This arduous task, to which no one perhaps can pretend to be fully equal, the reader will find attempted, and it is hoped in some good degree performed, in the following pages. As fruit trees are of essential importance to the farmer, the rearing of them from seeds and otherwise, as also the grafting, transplanting, and pruning them, are attended to in this work. And as agriculture cannot be carried on to the best advantage without a variety of suitable tools and machines, the most important and useful of farming implements are treated of. Much of the ease and comfort of the laborer, as well as the profit of the farmer, depends upon their being well constructed. The construction, therefore, is minutely attended to, although the art of the mechanic is the branch to which it most properly belongs. The author attempted to arrange the parts of his subject analytically, but the variety of the materials he has collected was so great, and their heterogeneousness so obvious, that he found it not easy to do it to his own satisfaction, which is one of the reasons why the book makes its appearance in the lexicographical form. And when he considers that what he is doing is not principally for the instruction of critical scholars, but for the direction of the common people, it appears that the want of a systematical arrangement is a matter of no great consequence. On the present plan, he has saved himself the trouble of writing a long index, which must have added several pages to the volume, and increased its price to the purchasers, which he wishes may be as low as possible, for their encouragement. Perhaps it need not be added that the fashionableness of an alphabetical method is a further apology for the form in which this book appears, nor the advantage the most illiterate reader will have of readily turning to any particular part of the general subject. It is hoped that an acquaintance with this volume, if it should be perused by the generality of our farmers, will enable them to communicate their ideas to each other, and to learners in husbandry with their greater perspicuity and propriety, and lead them to use nearly the same language in doing it in the various parts of the country. For the writer has endeavored that his diction should not only be concise, but plain and intelligible to ordinary readers, such as is most suitable to the subject, and not adapted to lead any into the use of absurd and ungrammatical language. How far these designs are accomplished, the learned and judicious reader will be able to determine. As a number of vulgar errors and prejudices are detected, and new methods of management proposed, it is expected that what is written will be censured by many who have confirmed themselves in wrong practices by inveterate habits. But if persons will only be so fair as to allow that there is a possibility of some want of perfection in their present established practice, which is at least highly probable, as this is a country where husbandry as an art has not been taught, nor much attended to, they will then see it is reasonable to give a candid hearing to any new scheme of improvement suggested, and to plausible arguments offered in support of its utility, and allow themselves to be influenced by them. If those who are in low circumstances should fear they may suffer loss by trying any new practice in husbandry, it is hoped the richer sort will be inclined to do it by love of their country, for others will undoubtedly inquire concerning their success. And when they are convinced by experiments made by their neighbors of the advantage of any new practice, one would think they can need no other motive to induce them to adopt it. On the other hand, let not the book be reprobated for containing so many things as it does, which are already well known to farmers. The farmer may find reasons for his good practice which he has not before thought of, and be induced to persevere in it. And besides, all useful knowledge ought to be recorded, that it may be retained and be in no danger of being lost, as a great deal has been in the world. It should also be remembered that things which are well known by some may be quite new to others, especially to young persons and to all those who have newly turned their attention to husbandry. The writer has had more zeal and courage in attempting to promote improvements in agriculture since the happy termination of the late struggle for independence than before. Our holding the rank of a free and independent nation allows us to consider the country as indisputably our own, and ourselves as monarchs over our farms. Nor does it appear probable that we shall soon meet with anything that will give us a material interruption in pursuing the arts or enjoying the blessings of peace. If great improvements were now to be made, we might have reason to hope we should enjoy the benefits of them through life, and that posterity would not be deprived of them. But the most forcible reason of our cultivating this art is the indispensable necessity of it, to enable us to live as becomes an independent people. The alarming effect of the present low state of husbandry is that we are necessitated to import much of our food and clothing, while we are incapable of making proportionable remittances in the produce of the soil, or in anything else. As a good system of national government is now established, I see no reason to doubt but that a spirited attention to husbandry and manufactures, accompanied with a more general practice of frugality and economy, would put us on a respectable footing, so that such a foundation would be laid for our increasing wealth that we should be able in a short time to cancel our public debts and might reasonably hope ere long to become an opulent, respectable, and very powerful nation. As to the present edition, its appearing so soon after the first is occasioned by the rapid sale of the book, arising from the general acceptance it has obtained, and the increasing demand could not otherwise be supplied. The author has taken the opportunity to correct a great number of small errors. Some few things are suppressed in this publication. The diction in many parts is much improved. Many articles are more largely and more accurately treated of than they were before, and a number of new and important ones are added, with a view to render the work a more complete directory for husbandmen, and that the vegetables that are treated on may be known to persons in other countries as well as in remote parts of our own, where they are probably called by different names from those English ones he had given them. He has now added the botanical names, which are extensively known by persons of erudition. On the whole, he thinks the book is far more increased in value than in size. If in its present improved state it shall be found to contribute towards reviving and continuing the spirit of husbandry, and towards the increasing advantage of those who are employed in it, he will consider it as the most happy reward he can have for his labor. The New England Farmer or Georgical Dictionary.